Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to the Lepanto Institute's Acre Team. I'm your host, Michael Hitchborn, and this week we actually have a really good guest that I've been anticipating bringing on for quite some time, and now we finally got him. He's going to tell us about the Collegium. This is my friend Ed Schaefer, who founded the Collegium. It's a very small right now Catholic college up in Maryland, and it's a fantastic endeavor. I visited it about a couple of years ago, and it's a really amazing institution, and I can't wait for him to tell you all about it. I see some of you in the chat room have you watched my interview with Timothy Gordon this afternoon, so I am very happy to hear about that. And I also had an interview with um, Taylor Marshall earlier this week. I was apparently Anthony Stein on his program. Return to Tradition is going to be featuring our report in tomorrow's program. So we've got a lot of coverage here. And from what I understand, there are a lot of bishops that are kind of running for cover, as it were, because of our report. So kudos to you guys for getting it out there and for really working hard in order to make to put as many eyes on it as possible. Let's keep the pressure on. Let's keep pushing and trying to make sure that the CCHD and the individual bishops answer directly for what we found that they are funding. It's deplorable. It's absolutely terrible. It shouldn't be going on. And now we have evidence that the CCHD is flat out lying about what they're funding. So that wraps up that portion. Why don't we start with our prayer, and now I will bring in Mr. Schaefer. In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Our Lady of Victory, pray for us. In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right, I'm going to bring Mr. Schaefer in here, and I will let him go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and tell us about the Collegium. Oh, we can't hear you. Hold on. There we go.
There we go.
We're good.
Thank you, Michael. And as I was just listening, I just want to say thank you for the work you do. It's difficult work, not only difficult to accomplish, but difficult because it's difficult to imagine these things are going on, and then somebody having to uncover it all. So thank you for the work. It's important work. It's thankless work, but you deserve a lot of kudos for it. So from me anyway, thank you for what you're doing.
Much appreciated.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about our students this year. They are the heart of the Collegium, and then we can talk about the institution at large. So this is our first year of operation with a full group of students. We have 9 students this fall, and they come from all over. We have 2 from California. We have a student from Texas, 1 from Omaha, 1 from Nashville, and the other 4 then come from Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. So
Wow.
We actually have more people coming from outside a 200-mile radius than coming from inside a 200-mile radius. And we've always thought that we would be a national institution, and we've set that mark almost immediately. So we're very pleased about that. But far from where these students come from, they are an amazing group. I mean, they just make it a joy to get up every morning. They are eager to learn. They're eager to pray. They're eager to grow in their faith. And they just like getting along. I mean, or like being with each other. I give you one little tiny example. We provide 20 meals a week. We don't provide Sunday dinner because we have mass at 11:30. It doesn't get out till about 1.
Oops. Oh, you hung up there.
And by the time we finish, it's 3 o'clock or so. By 6, they're not interested in dinner yet. And because of the way we operate our meal system, they all have leftovers and things like that from the week, and they all have full apartments. Every student lives in an apartment that's got a kitchen, dining, living room, and bedrooms. And so they could easily stay in their apartments and just eat their leftovers. they bring them all down to a common room and eat dinner together because they really enjoy being together. They're just a fabulous group. Today we just finished. We had a schola rehearsal at 4 o'clock. We had rosary and vespers and grace starting at 5:10, and then I came running down here. And normally, each one of us, each on the faculty, kind of anchors each of the sides when we sing vespers. And one of the faculty that covers the epistle side normally is at a conference this week. He's not here, and the women just stepped up and they just did fine. So we don't need him. We can do just fine. And they've only been here, a couple of months. So it's just incredible to see what they're doing. Just incredible.
What is the ratio of men to women?
Well, we have 2 men and we have 7 women this fall.
No, that's
it's great for the guys.
yeah.
I think it will be
a little boring.
yeah, I think it will be. It's the class coming in this coming fall looks a little more balanced.
How many do you expect to come in this fall?
Well, it's a little early to tell. I think we will at least double our numbers.
That's good.
So we'll be at 18. We would like to be we'd like to be at 30. I don't think we'll quite get to 30. I think between 20 and 25 is a reasonable goal.
Okay, that's a good number.
Yeah, it gives us kind of a critical mass. It's great. We've got the rooms for them. We've got the housing all set up. I think we could handle 30 people next year if we had 30 people. So
at your current position, and I've been through your institution. You showed me around into the. I mean, the apartments are really nice.
Yes,
they're incredibly nice. I would live in one of those.
Well, I do. My wife and I live in one, and both of our faculty actually live in one. I don't know it'll be that all the time, but it is that way this year.
They're quite nice. How many students are you prepared to house currently at your current level?
Well, we could house 30 students tomorrow.
Okay.
We have the facilities for 30 students. And the building will house probably 75. So over time, we'll take over more and more of the apartments as we grow and people empty their leases. We'll pick them up. That's how we have 20 apartments now. Of the 35 in the building, we lease 20 of them. So a couple of them we use for offices and things like that, but some of them faculty are living in. That's why we can't if we had 20 apartments completely dedicated to students, we could handle probably 40 or more, maybe 44.
Now I want to ask you about the Collegium, how you got it started and the idea behind it. But before we do, I want to get a little bit about you. So let's tell everybody, who you are. Where'd you come from? How did this idea even come to your mind? What drove you to this?
Well, my background has been in music. I have 3 music degrees and a certificate. I was always hired as a choral director, and I had a pretty good career as a choral director. I was in a Jesuit institution out in the Northwest for 21 years. We had 3 choirs. They all sang strictly sacred music. One sang all the big choral orchestral masses, and one choir sang a cappella music, and the other one was a schola that sang chant and early polyphony for mass. And it was a great place to be. I loved living out there. We raised our kids there. It was a great place. I got to a point at one point where I was a tenured faculty member, and I felt as a result I had a responsibility to support the mission and the vision of the institution. That seemed like a reasonable arrangement. It got harder and harder to do. It was just the institution was becoming much more secular, and I couldn't do it. At some point, I just couldn't do it anymore. And it was at that moment when I was looking for another institution. I had always thought of teaching as something of vocation, not just a job, and so I wanted to teach in a Catholic institution. It was then that I realized that this problem wasn't just isolated to my institution; it was system-wide. Everywhere I interviewed, I would have been going into the same thing. And so that was in 2005, 6. And I ended up at the University of Florida. I went to a state institution. I had never been in a state institution in my entire life. I had never stepped foot
Hmm.
in one. I had no idea how they worked, and I kind of fought it spiritually and emotionally for a while. I kept interviewing for jobs back in different Catholic institutions and finding the same kind of problem. And in fact, I should tell you a story. It might take a little long, but I should tell you a story
Sure.
about this. One of the institutions I went to, I interviewed. They offered me the job, and I turned it down. Um, and the president said, "I really need somebody to help me recenter this institution in the church." Now, a little aside, I have to tell you, that's an impossible task. To turn the institutions around that we have is an impossible task because of all the bad hiring that's happened over previous decades. You have an entrenched group of tenured faculty. That is faculty who
Hmm.
have lifetime contracts and cannot be fired. And the tenured faculty control the curriculum and they control the hiring.
Wow.
So it's not possible. It's just
Yeah.
not possible.
Because the
So
institution set itself up in such a way that it made it impossible for reform.
yes, yes, and I don't think they did that wittingly, but it's just the way it happened.
Yeah.
And so the president of this particular institution said to me, one of my priests was not here in this interview, and he's very important to our work. And he's down in Florida. He's about an hour from where you are living. He's taking care of his mother right now. I'd like you to go visit him. So I said, all right, I'll do that before I make a final decision. So I went down and visited him. We had a nice conversation. My wife Karen came with me. And at one point I said, well, Father, I'd like to ask you three things. I hope I can remember them. I said, the first is if you could start a school today and money was not a problem, you didn't have to worry about budgets or students or recruitment, anything like that. You could just do whatever you wanted to do. What would it look like? And he gave me a kind of social justice, Greenpeace, save the whales
Oh boy.
message, and I said, well, Father, I said that's all fine and well, but I could say the same thing about the University of Florida. What would be different? And so he backpedaled a little bit, and then I asked him. I said, well, what do you think we can do at this school in the next 5 years? And he gave me a reasonable answer, and we had a conversation around that. And then I said to him, what role in the next 5 years do you think the traditional mass might play? And he gave me a poetic, I've never heard a more moving description of the
Hmm.
traditional mass. I was shocked. I was ready to sign up. And he got to the end of it and he said, this would have no role in our institution. so, so we left, and Karen had told me when we interviewed this job, she says, whatever you decide, I will support you. And we get in the car, and I knew this couldn't work. And I get in the car and I said, so what do you think? And she just started to sob. She
Hmm.
said, we're going to go up to New England. It's going to be cold and miserable. It's going to be just like it was when we left the Northwest. It's going to be hard on you. It's going to be hard on our marriage. It's just going to be horrible. And of course, she was right. And I said, don't get all consternated about this. You're right. There's no way I could take this job. And she's kind of sniffling and holding back tears, and she
Hmm.
says, this was shortly after the traditional mass had been unleashed by Benedict, and we were attending mass about an hour from where we lived. And she said, I come down to this traditional mass with you every week, and sometimes I don't even know what's going on. She was a convert. She says, sometimes I have no idea what's going on. She says, but I know it just saved our marriage.
Hmm.
And she was right. She was right. And God bless her. She is my right arm in this endeavor. Anyhow,
Yeah.
so at some point in all of this, we were just kind of commiserating in the kitchen and about the state of Catholic higher education. And I said, half jokingly, I said, maybe we should start a school. And it kind of got quiet. And she said, I've been married to you a really long time, and you've had a lot of really stupid ideas as long as you've been married. But this one actually makes sense. And I know that wasn't Karen talking. That was God talking through
Yeah.
Karen, because it wasn't, we had a really nice job and a nice life in Florida. It was very nice. We loved
Hmm.
living there. Anyhow, so that got the ball rolling. And it's a long story as to how we ended up here in Hagerstown, Maryland, but we're delighted to be here. And we've started this year. We've got 8 students. I think we're looking at doubling or maybe 20, 25 next year. And I think the big questions are, so why? I mean, there are Catholic schools that have the traditional mass at them, or somewhat level. And so, why go to all the headache, the expense, the trouble, the agony of starting an institution? And I think there are a few things that make us completely different in the landscape.
Hmm.
The first is, and this is probably the most, well, 2 things that are probably the most important. We we don't just accommodate tradition; we embrace tradition, and there's a significant difference. Um, if you're old enough, you might recognize an analogy. It's like, sure, you can come on the bus, you just have to sit in the back,
Sure.
right? I mean, that's sort of the way that traditionalists are treated in institutions that are not, that's not their world view. It's not their
Hmm.
spiritual view, but because they need students, they'll let a traditional mass occur, and they'll have some people that attend it. That's just not who we are. That's
Right.
just not who we are. So, and that's really important. Um, it's important to our curriculum, which is a classical liberal arts curriculum, because if we study the church fathers and the church doctors and the great saints of the church, all of them, their teaching, their thinking, their faith was nurtured, strengthened, and informed by the traditional mass. So it only makes sense in the
Right.
curriculum that our formation would mirror that. And the second thing is that if you look at all the data, Catholic mass attendance is just plummeting. It's
Yep.
just plummeting. I think the most recent uh, Pew, or maybe it's the Carol, I'm not sure, has regular mass attendance at Catholics at under 20% now on a weekly
Wow.
basis. And young Catholics, 18 to 32, that number is lower. I've seen one study as low as 7%. I don't know that it's that low, but it's certainly in the teens at the most. However, if you take that data and you filter it for Catholic students who come from and attend traditional mass regularly, the regular mass attendance is 98%.
Wow. Yeah. That's
So
that's stark.
whatever you think about
Hmm.
tradies, whether we're all crazy and so on, we're just people that are trying to raise our kids and get them to heaven. If you just look at the data, you should be really embracing tradition, and so
Absolutely.
we do. So we do, because we tell families our primary mission is to give your sons and daughters an education, formation, the support and resources they need to enter into an independent life with their faith strengthened, and living lives of virtue that will help get them to heaven. We'll prepare them for jobs on this earth, but a good job doesn't mean anything if they don't end up in heaven.
Agreed. Absolutely. A job is basically a means to an end. Our
Yes,
life is a work towards salvation. That's the
right.
order of things. So
And
let's
I think we're
talk.
the only institution that will tell people that face to face.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit about the philosophy of the Collegium. What is its foundational principle? What sets it apart from other Catholic institutions like, say, Christendom College, which is my alma mater, or some of the other ones like the what is it, Thomas More up in New
Right.
England?
Thomas Aquinas, Wyoming Catholic,
Hmm.
Magdalene, they're kind of the half a dozen or so.
Yeah.
Well, certainly the way we embrace tradition is primary. Our mission of salvation of souls is primary.
Hmm.
Um, I think our curriculum is also unique in several ways. Some people compare us to a great books program, and we're kind of like one in the sense that you can look on our website and see our reading lists. There's a lot of primary source material there. But there's a couple of reasons we didn't go that route. First of all, there are already a couple schools like that.
Hmm.
Secondly, great books programs are committed to a single pedagogical method, the Socratic method. We have nothing against it. We utilize it, but it's not the ideal scenario for every subject, for every topic, or for every student. So we like having a wider or a greater flexibility with regard to pedagogy. And the third thing is that great book programs are they're a bit random in the sense that they sort of throw students in the deep end, expose them to these great minds, and expect them to kind of make sense of it all. And some people can do
Right.
that pretty fastly, and other people don't. I mean, if you open the Summa
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have the adequate background, you're just not going to get a tenth out of it of what you can. So we supplement that with the works of other great writers, contemporary writers, to help us unfold those things, which a great books program just won't do in principle.
Yep.
And the second thing is we have a what I think sets us apart. We have also because we're so small. There's certainly an integration from course to course. For example, we were studying the history of the Mass in a Catholic seminar a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that we noticed in the various reforms from the 16th century up into the 20th century is that the notion of vernacular in the Mass keeps popping up, and it
Mm-hmm.
gets squished down and it keeps popping up. It's been a topic for a long time. And so I asked the students to write after the reading what their thoughts were on the matter. Where did they come down in this argument? Well, we actually didn't have the conversation in that class. We had it in a music class, right? I mean, so conversations happen across curriculum. I mean, we'll take some scriptural things, and it'll end up in Latin class. And so there's a kind of integration that I think can happen in our place being small that I think is hard in other places. And the final thing is we have a kind of sequential approach as best you can in a limited 8-semester period. But we start with the trivium, kind of the trivium on steroids. So we help people learn how to learn and how to think and how to
Mm-hmm.
approach things. And then we move from there into the natural and physical sciences. So math and the other sciences. So those things that are real, that you can touch and feel, and use these methodologies to understand them and come to a greater understanding. And from there, then we move to philosophy and theology, those things that are equally as real, but that are more difficult to touch and feel.
Sure.
And so all of that then is ultimately guided toward the discovery of truth, which is God. But we have a way that we approach it that I think is unique. Our math courses are based on Aristotelian philosophy. Our science courses, students actually take a mini philosophy unit before they engage any science course that helps them to ground the study of science in the proper philosophical moral framework, because we see today what's happened when medicine and science is ungrounded from its proper roots.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all those things make us very unique.
Absolutely. No, I don't know if we've actually spoken about this, but I do hold a master's degree in education, specifically
Mhm.
for curricular development.
Mhm.
So I understand trying to develop a pedagogy that approaches a broader group of students than just those who would be able to learn and understand through the great books, or be able to learn and understand just through the Socratic method. Or,
Right.
you want to have different ways of explaining the same material in such a way that it's going to be soaked in by everybody on different levels. It's always going to be on different levels,
Right.
but you do want to have the greatest amount of saturation possible.
Right.
So the when you're talking about the pedagogy, and you started talking about not everybody learns from the great books program the same way, or even grasps it, and I'm sort of going, because
Yeah.
I um
I
I
taught I taught music theory for 35 years, and every concept I taught, I had to teach it at least 3 different ways before I got
yeah,
everybody in the classroom.
right. And I taught in a classroom for a couple of years, and I understand what it means to try and explain things to students. And I use that approach now. It's funny, I don't use my education degree for education per se, but here with what I do at the Lepanto Institute, every time I put together a report, every time I put together an article, my primary goal is to make sure that what I say is communicated well so that it's easily graspable by the broadest audience available. But I
Mhm.
don't want to make it so simplistic that it's not interesting to somebody who has a higher intellectual capacity. So I'm trying to cast a broad net. And as an educator, you seem to really grasp that well. And I think that that's going to serve you and the Collegium well in your approach to educating students and helping them to grasp not just the low things, but the high things in an equal way.
Yeah, we hope so. That's our intent, and it seems to be bearing fruit. I mean, our students are all doing pretty well, and we've got a couple that are having some problems in a couple classes, and we're pulling them aside and working with them to keep them up. So, yeah,
So
I think
tell us a
so.
little bit about uh, the structure of the classes themselves. I want to kind of go through what your core curriculum is. Do you have a majors program? What kind of degree do the students graduate with? That kind of thing. Let's go into that a
Sure.
little bit.
All right. So I'll start at the big and go into the more detailed. So we offer one degree. It's a Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Arts Studies.
Okay.
It is a single curriculum. There are no electives. Everybody takes the same courses, and they constitute what you would expect in a heavy liberal arts program. There's a history sequence, philosophy, theology, music, art, logic, rhetoric, Latin. They take 8 semesters of Latin. Um, we we debated, what about taking 2 or 3 years of Latin and then having a little Greek and so on. And I said, all these schools that offer 2 years of a language and let you go, you've just gotten through the grammar and you're just ready to learn the language, and then you
Mm,
stop.
yeah.
And so we'd rather them be better versed and actually have some facility, and 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 that's why we do that.
I
Um,
know enough Latin just to be dangerous.
so, Michael, you're dangerous even without Latin. So, so the we have a work program that's involved in the curriculum too. Every student has to work 8 hours a week. That we work. They work in uh, different businesses around the downtown. One's in real estate development, insurance. There are 3 doing catering, digital advertising, a watchmaker shop. There's doing a lot of different things, and so we've structured time to help make that a little more possible. Our classes are generally twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays, Tuesdays and Fridays. So they're a little longer, twice a week. The other thing that does is it gives you a relatively equal amount of time between classes. So assignments can be spaced properly. When you have Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, you have a difficult time because you have 2 days, 2 days, and 3 days. And it's
Hmm.
hard to keep assignments on an equal basis. The one class that's not true is Latin. That's 3 days a week because it's a skills-based kind of course and they need more drill. So we have classes Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. A, a daily schedule, there is an 8:15 class, and then we break for lauds. So we don't have lauds. There are no classes when we are at prayer. Everybody breaks for prayer. Then we have a second class, Angelus, lunch. Some days there's an afternoon class and some days not. So they have various times in the afternoon. We have some activities like Scholas on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Then there's at 5:15 Rosary, Vespers, Grace, and then we have dinner. We are in the process of securing a chaplain for next year, and that all looks like it's a go. Um, the bishop has been very, very supportive. Archbishop has been very supportive. I think that's all it looks like they're just working out the details now. So when that happens, probably lauds will be replaced by mass, and maybe the 2 or 3 hardcore people that want to sing lauds will get up and do it earlier in the day
There we
before the
go.
8 o'clock class. There'll be a couple. There'll be a couple. But that's a typical day in our life.
I want to let our audience know real quick that I am keeping a track of what you're talking about in the comments section. If you have a question for Mr. Schaefer, please go ahead and just put them in the comments box, and I will be more than happy to put them up on the screen, and then he can answer your questions as soon as they come up.
I'm going to
Um,
put the website. There's the website.
Oh, okay. Here, let me
Oh,
give
wait,
you the.
wait. I'm in a,
I got
that's
it.
a private chat.
Yep, that's all right. I got it.
I
But
was
I
in the,
don't.
I was in the wrong chat box.
Here we are. So I put the website out there. It's three W's dot the dash collegium collegium.org. Charles Teachout has a question, and he says, "How will you obtain accreditation?"
We're in that process now. The permitting in Maryland mirrors the accreditation process. So we've really already gone through all the required processes, but the accreditation just requires you to do it all over again. And then you have to wait some time. You're going to have to graduate a class.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't anticipate any issues there. It's just, we're just going through the hoops. There's only one reason to get accredited. And that is, if students want to do graduate work, most graduate programs require an undergraduate degree from a regionally accredited institution.
Right.
That is the only reason. Now, I've been in this game a long time, and accreditors can be
There's
a
a
little
lot of
difficult.
politics.
Yeah, they can be a little difficult in terms of social engineering and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you keep their feet to the fire, you can deal with them. I mean, their mission, their written mission, is to help you maintain the standards that you set for your institution. And so you just keep reminding them that they'll back off. So I'm not worried about it. Let me throw one more thing out while you're looking for questions. One of the things that and this I'll just throw out to everybody to just think about. One of the things that is important, our meals are important. Now, not every student comes to every meal.
Mm-hmm.
But we eat meals together. We don't eat, it's not kind of a cafeteria feeding trough kind of experience where you eat and run. We eat meals together. And we do that because I tell the students when they come, because what I'm finding is even in traditional families, many students come from families that don't eat meals together. That
Oh,
is just,
wow.
it's just gone. And, big families, mom puts a big pot of something on the stove and people just dish up bowls and run. It's that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's difficult, but we raised kids and they were in everything. It was mostly music, but they were in, ballet and piano and cello and orchestra and choir and just all Girl Scouts, all of it. And it was difficult. But, Karen said, I don't care. We're going to eat dinner
Mm-hmm.
together every night, whatever it takes. And that's an important thing. And I would throw that out to people. It's important for spiritual life. It's important for the development of the family. It's also important for academics. There was a study done of national merit scholars, and they were looking for common links among these students. What characteristics are common among students who end up becoming national merit scholars? And they could only find one thing that was common to everybody in that study.
Hmm.
They all came from families that ate dinner together.
No kidding.
Yeah,
That's fascinating.
it was remarkable. Yeah.
So speaking of meals, I know that you don't really have a regular cafeteria. I've seen your common room. Who prepares the meals? Who brings them? Who sets the menu?
It's great. So we're not big enough yet to have a commercial kitchen, a
Right.
cooking staff. We're just not big enough. So, and the students designed this program. We eat in 9 or 10 restaurants within a 2-block radius, all downtown. And before every meal, so let's say lunch is at noon, by 10 a.m., students will go on to a link that's set up, and the menu for that restaurant comes up, and they fill in a Google form what they want to eat for lunch. It all dumps into a spreadsheet, and one of the faculty calls it in about a half hour before lunch, and the lunch is waiting for us when we get there. And we do that for every meal.
Wow, that's great.
So the nice thing about it is students get exactly what they want,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't have any wasted food.
Right.
We don't have any wasted food. So it's a little more expensive per meal than you might if you had 3,000 students, and
Sure.
but the overall cost is far less because we don't have all the overhead.
Right.
And they
Wow,
eat
that's
really
amazing.
well. I mean, I had salmon and red apple flavored cabbage and mashed potatoes for lunch today. I mean, they eat really well.
That's amazing.
So the meals work out very well. It's a great system. We'll
That's
probably do that for another year. Whether we can do it beyond, if we get too big, things will have to change. But um,
so. All the students, are they all currently the same grade level, or are they at different levels?
we actually have one sophomore student that transferred in credits from a place that we could actually accept their credits. They were close enough to us. In fact, if you folks are homeschooling, I will recommend the Great Books program with the Angelicum. Is a curriculum where we can accept some of their courses. They're close enough to some things that we do. They take some college level courses in that they have that option. And if they do, we can take most of them. Anyhow, so we have one student that's a sophomore and the rest are freshmen. So essentially this year, the schedule's a little wacky because almost everybody's taking sophomore level courses except for the ones that have prerequisites. So it's a little bifurcated this year.
Mm-hmm.
That'll work itself out next year.
So currently everybody is taking the same courses at the same time?
Yes, this sophomores has like one or maybe two directed studies she's doing, but everybody takes the same courses at the same time.
So when you move on and you start adding more classes and you have different class levels, obviously you're going to have seniors at the same time you're going to have freshmen. So then you're going to have more of a split schedule where not all the students are traveling from one class to another at the same exact time. How do you how are you going
Well,
to
not really. I mean, no, I don't think so
really?
because we're in cohorts. Everybody takes the same. All the freshmen will be in the same classes, and the same sophomore classes together, the junior classes together. So now there may be an occasional student that has to take something that's out of that sequence. Okay, but you can make that by simply swapping, making sure that the class that student needs is not at the same time that student has another class. I mean, generally speaking, there are going to be some exceptions and there'll be a few little wrinkles, but generally speaking, we can do the whole thing in 4 classrooms.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you'll have all the freshmen in one class, all the sophomores in
Right.
another, juniors and seniors and so forth.
Yeah.
And then, so they'll just swap classrooms or just keep the same classrooms and the professors will swap, or how you,
We haven't figured that part out yet.
okay.
We lease class space at a teaching center a half a block away, and it's an excellent facility run by the University of Maryland, and they don't have any students in there, so we lease class space to them for almost nothing. They've been very gracious to us.
They don't have
And
any students there at all?
well, no, they have some students, but 90% of their students are night students that come in for a class or they take their
Oh,
courses
interesting.
online. COVID really upended them because when everything went online, nobody came back.
Wow. Wow.
Um,
And I think it was right at the very beginning of COVID that we actually went to visit,
yes,
if I
yeah,
recall.
we were COVID had finished by the time we've opened. We're not dealing with that nonsense anymore.
Right. But when
But
I went to visit, I think that because
yep,
that was
yeah,
before you opened.
yes, yeah. It was a tough, but the whole student body they had built up just dissipated, and because the curriculums all went online and they've just stayed online. The faculty don't have to come in. That so they have almost nobody in that building.
So
So
Charles asks again, do you have benefactors to make this go?
we have a couple of generous people. They are not making it all up. So Charles, if you're interested, you give me a call. Uh, uh, it's a tough business right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough business, and if we're trying to keep it affordable, that makes it more difficult, right? Because the cost. Education is it's a crazy business. It's the only business that you're creating a product that your customers can't afford. Um, none of your customers can afford it. So yes, but we're like any tuition driven school. Tuition pays a little bit of it, and we have some donors that are helping out, and we're now I will tell you we're doing one other thing which is just going to happen in the next 2 weeks. Thanks to 2 benefactors, we bought a building that houses an art studio that we just lease out for
Hmm.
pennies, and houses a laundromat. And we just bought the laundromat on Monday. There's a few things that have to be fixed up. The boiler has to be replaced. There's paint and polish and a few things like that. But by the 1st of December, we will be in the laundromat business. Now it will give some students some work opportunity, and that's a valuable thing. But it's the beginning of a process of sustainability where we want to be able to generate a certain portion of our revenue needs by auxiliary revenue producing businesses, and this will be the first one of those. And it's a good business. It's in a good location. They've got a good clientele. So that's another piece of the puzzle. When you're in a business where you have to look for donors all the time, one of the things that donors are not too happy about is if you just continue to need more and more from them all the time. And
Yep.
and this is an opportunity for us to show our not only our gratitude for our benefactors, but that we're sensitive to that issue and that we are creating a sustainability plan that will generate a certain percentage of our budget. I think it'll probably be 10 to 15% ultimately, but that's significant.
Mm-hmm. When I first visited, you showed me in part of your business plan a coffee business that you'd integrated into it.
Yes.
Is that still?
We do sell coffee. We have a roaster that roasts for us. It's a strictly online business right now. Heavenly Roast Coffee. If you look up heavenlyroastcoffee.com, you can buy from us. It's a small business. It runs in the black. It's not generating tons of revenue for the institution right now. It needs somebody who will grab it and market it. And the coffee business is pretty crowded. But it's great coffee. I mean, it really is good coffee. And yes, it's another business. And like I said, it's in the black, so it generates a little bit of business. It probably pays for all the coffee the students are drinking.
One of the things that we had talked about when you told me about integrating the coffee business into it was that maybe at some point in the future you would have the students working in order to reduce some of their fees, working in the coffee business, and at the same time that they were working in the coffee business to work off some of their own debt, they would also be learning a bit about the business itself. They'd be learning about bookkeeping. They'd be learning about just the process of making a product and selling a product and marketing a product, and having all the students kind of be involved in not just the work study element, but as kind of a hands-on experience to learn the business world before they go into the world. I thought it was a fantastic idea.
Yeah, and that's actually true with all the positions that our students are in. One's in an insurance business, and they trained her, and I think now they've got her shopping policies. So she communicates with different companies on the needs of the individual and tries to shop policies for their clients. So one of them's we have a luxury watchmaker in town, and one of them is learning to put watches together and repair watches and what it takes to make a luxury watch. So they're all, in fact, we just at lunch, one of them's in a real estate developer, and he's now digitizing tons of years of files that they've got to archive. And so they learn different aspects of a business. Some of it, the behind the scenes things that people don't think about that are necessary, they all pick up something from that. That'll be true in the coffee business as well. The group got placed in other businesses, and it wasn't a big enough need that we placed someone there this year, but that'll probably happen next year for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So your enrollment currently is 9 students, and you're looking to double that next year. How quickly do you hope or think that you'll be able to get up to 30 students?
I think it'll probably be the next year.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be great if it was this coming year. That would be great. I just, this is, I'm going to tell you now, all you people, all you traddies out there, you have to listen to this. This is really critical. I thought that well, first of all, the demographics are fighting us. I mean, the number of 17-year-olds out there and 18-year-olds is just falling through the floor. People are just not having babies. Okay. That's just and haven't been for a generation or
Mhm.
more. The United States is now below replacement level. It's going to create a serious economic issue. We can go on about that forever, but so the demographics are difficult, but there are a couple of things that we've discovered when we talk to families. Sometimes we get families that will say, "Well, look, I've done everything I can do. I raised my child. My child's 18. She is an adult now. Um, I think they've got to stand on their own 2 feet and they make their own decisions." No, there's a certain amount of truth to that. I mean, when someone's 18, you want them to kind of start to become an adult. Uh, they don't have the maturity we hope they'll have when they're 25, 30, 45, and so on. But there's a certain amount of truth to that. However, what parents aren't putting together is that those college years are the most vulnerable years of their life. If they're going to leave the
Mhm.
church, they're going to leave the church during their college years.
Yep.
And so I think parents just, washing their hands and saying, well, it's not my problem anymore is a huge mistake. However, we're seeing that. And
Oh.
the other thing that we see is that um, families have gotten into two things. First, they look at college as a trade school. If they don't see a shovel-ready job on the other side, they don't understand what education is about.
Right.
And all you have to do is go into a store, go into a business, and try to deal with a young person who's 22, 25, and you get so irritated with the level of incompetency that you deal with constantly
Yep.
because no one has taught them how to think. No one has taught them
Right.
how to problem solve. I mean, the education they've gotten has been useless. So there's that piece of it. But the other part is that families have lists of amenities that they want, and they are willing to spend a lot of money to get those amenities. I mean, Christendom is our largest competitor,
I'm
and
sure.
Christendom is our largest competitor. All right, our sticker price is 17,000. It's under $17,000. It'll be higher next year, but this year is $17,000. The sticker price, and I'm talking about tuition, room, and board. The
Mhm.
sticker price for Christendom is $52,000.
I know.
Now, I know they have a lot of quote aid and so on and so forth,
Mhm.
but families will because an institution will have whatever they're looking for, whatever kind of amenity they're looking for. They'll fork out a lot more money and they'll hang a lot of debt on their kids' shoulders
Yep.
to accomplish that. And I don't know how to answer that. I just you want to go borrow $30,000 so your kid can have a XYZ. Well, okay, go do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and it becomes a real problem because just from an economic standpoint, I got my degree in economics. So when you look at the institution of, say, medicine, the average student who comes out of college with a degree in medicine, and we're talking a doctorate in medicine, whether it's a PhD or an MD or but they come out of college having some sort of doctoral degree in surgery or in common practice or in gynecology or whatever it is. They're coming out of university now with an average of $250,000 in debt. And
yeah.
that's beyond what they've already paid to get in the door. So when they come out with $250,000 in debt, what do you think that's going to do to the medical industry?
Well,
Because
and in the medical industry in particular. Now, of course, undergraduates are way over debted as well, but the
sure.
medical industry in particular, as medicine becomes more and more socialized,
Yep.
the income of these doctors is lower. It drops.
That's right.
And so 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was something to say, well, I'm going to borrow $250,000 because I'm going to make $250,000 a year. And if I live like a pauper, I can pay that off in 2 or 3 years. And there was
Right.
some logic to that. That logic is disappearing today because they're not going to make that kind of money
Right.
as medicine. They're going to be, upper middle class government workers.
Mhm.
Um, so
Yeah,
anyhow,
well, and that's kind of the part of it. And it's I picked medicine just because it was the easiest one to pull out of my hat, but you're seeing the same thing with law. You're seeing the same thing with if it's not an actual trade, where somebody is going into, say, music, or say they're going into construction or something along those lines, where they learn architecture or they learn something about the building process. On average, the debt that they incur in college or in their upper graduate degrees is not going to be covered for the first 10 or 15 years of their life post college.
Well, this is true. This is true even just at the undergraduate level.
Wow.
Just at the undergraduate level. The amount of debt that they're picking up is just, it's insane.
It is
It's
insane.
just insane. Yeah.
And what a leg up it will be for students to be able to come out of college with virtually no debt or just a little bit of debt.
Right.
I mean, with a sticker price of $16,000-$17,000 a year for the Collegium, and I'm assuming that most of that gets paid through the course of the year, and that with their work study programs and even just summer jobs, they could pay down most of that by the time they get to their next year. What would you say would be the average debt of a student coming out of the Collegium by the time they graduate?
Well, since we're in our first year, it's a little hard to estimate. This year, none of our students have any loans.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah,
that's really big. And not having any loans coming out of your first year, in your second year, I'm assuming you're paying about the same rate.
Yeah,
Third and fourth year,
it'll have to bump. Our housing and food prices have gone up for sure.
Yeah, and that's happening across the board.
Yeah.
But so Charles has another question. Says, is the Collegium's price the least expensive anywhere in the USA?
I think for any private institution, we're actually less expensive than an awful lot of public schools. I think it is, and I will tell you this: if a student will come to us with a bona fide offer from another institution that's less, we'll honor it. And no one has done that yet. No one has brought me an so I think we might be the least expensive because no one has been able to come to say, well, it's only going to cost me this somewhere else. So
Patricia asks, what is the cost per credit for undergraduates at the Collegium?
Well, we haven't calculated it that way. Let me think quickly. Take roughly 40.
While you're thinking about that, I'll go ahead and remind everybody, if you have a question for Mr. Schaefer, please let me know in the comments section. I'll be more than happy to ask the question, as we have been. And also, I want to just put the link once again to the website. It's 3w.the-collegium.org. It's right there in the chat box, so you can check out the Collegium and take a look. One person did mention earlier, and I forgot to bring it up. They said that the FAQ, questions you should ask a college, didn't come up. Otherwise,
oh yeah, there's something wrong on that video. We are finally, I think I might have the letter in my inbox today. We've been working with the Newman Society for heaven knows how long, and I do believe we're going to be on the Newman Society guide.
Wonderful.
I'll get the FAQ questions fixed on the website as soon as I have 2 minutes. So
did you have the credit question ready to answer?
No, my calculator dropped. I was trying to figure out how to figure it out because we just don't think that way. It's horribly low. I'm kind of embarrassed to think about it that way because then I'm going to. All right, let's see if I can do this.
Sure.
Well, see, we have a package price of tuition, room, and board, right? And so I'd have to take the room and board out. If I took the room and board out, what it's costing us to house and feed the students for this year, it's probably in the neighborhood of $40 or $50 a credit.
Wow, that's a pretty amazing price.
Yeah,
that's a pretty amazing price tag. Well, we're just about at the end of the hour, and I know that you have to run because you have something else to get to.
We're
So,
interviewing a student at a couple of minutes.
yeah,
Yes.
all right. I have one last comment slash question. Nona says, tell us how we can contribute. I noticed that you have a monthly donation available for as little as about $20 a month.
Yeah, you can go on the website and you can sign up, and I will tell you, every bit helps. Every bit helps. It would be so we're happy to take whatever you can put, and there is a way you can sign up, and I think Stripe does the payment processing, and we're happy to do that. If you want to contribute in a different way, um, why don't you email me? Let me put my email in here. Let's see, how can I get that in there?
Just go ahead and tell it to me, and I'll.
Okay. Well, it's E Schaefer, and Schaefer is SCHAEFER at the-collegium.org. If you want to write to me about anything else.
Okay, there it is. And I'm going to show it on screen here.
There you go.
Schaefer at the-collegium.org. So if you would like to contact him and follow up on how you can contribute to the Collegium, please give Mr. Schaefer an email. And before you go, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you would like to say, or anything that you would like to mention before we go?
I just want to ask people to help us spread the word. We do not have the level of marketing budget that other people have, so help us spread the word, and keep us in your prayers, and send us your kids.
All right.
So,
all right, very good. Thank you so much for being on with us. We're going to go ahead and close with our regular prayer. It's an Ave Maria, which is in Latin, and I know you know that. So
yes.
We'll go ahead and close with our Ave, and then I will see all of the rest of you next week.
This was a delight, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on. We really enjoyed having you on. This was just a delightful conversation.
Good.
In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen.
Our Lady of Victory.
Pray for us.
In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ed, thanks so much for being on. Have a good time talking to your new prospective student. I hope that that's another +1. And we'll be sharing this and spreading it around, and hopefully, and I'll send you the link also, so that you'll be able to share this interview with others as well.
Michael, this was great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your hospitality.
You're quite welcome. God bless you, and we'll see you all next week.
All right. Goodbye.